The Mothman. It was a night that would haunt my dreams for years to come. A night when the supernatural and the mundane converged in a terrifying dance of terror. I was never one to believe in cryptids, those elusive creatures of legend, until that fateful evening in the woods of Virginia. The woods had always held a certain allure for me, a place of solitude and reflection. I often went hiking alone to escape the noise and chaos of the city. The moon was a mere sliver in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees as I trudged along the winding forest trail. It was a chilly October night, and the air was thick with the scent of decaying leaves. As I ventured deeper into the woods, a strange unease settled in the pit of my stomach. Branches cracked, leaves rustled, and the night seemed alive with unseen eyes, for now at least. My flashlight's feeble beam struggled to pierce the oppressive darkness. My heart quickened, and I was acutely aware of my isolation, or so I thought. I paused to catch my breath, and it was then that I heard it. A strange, guttural sound that echoed through the forest. It was a noise I couldn't place, a mix of a mournful wail and an otherworldly screech. Panic welled up within me, and I quickly turned off my flashlight, hoping to hide in the dark. But there, just beyond the reach of the moonlight, I saw the eyes. A towering figure with wings outstretched, perched on a branch high above the forest floor. It was like something out of a nightmare, with large, glowing red eyes, just like everybody described it. Its body was dark and twisted, with feathers that kind of glowed in the moonlight. Everything that I'd come to search for, the legends of the Mothman, they were true. I couldn't move, and I certainly couldn't breathe. My heart pounded in my chest, drowning out the sounds of the forest night. The creature's eyes never wavered from me, and I could feel an overwhelming sense of weirdness. It was like we were both unsure of each other, staring at each other's eyes and waiting for the first person to make a move. Suddenly, it unfurled its wings and took flight. The noise was deafening as it soared through the trees, creating a chilling rush of air. My paralysis broke, and I stumbled back, trying to escape the nightmare that had come to life and that I had went out to search for. Everything that you've heard of this legend is true. How people describe it, what it acts like, and how big it is, it's all true. I ran blindly through the woods, branches scratching at my face and thorns tearing at my clothes. The night seemed endless, and I feel like the creature was pursuing me relentlessly, even though it really wasn't. I think it had spread its wings because it felt threatened by me, and it didn't know what kind of threat I really was. I didn't know how much longer I could keep going with running, my breath ragged and my body on the brink of exhaustion. Just when I thought I couldn't go on, I burst from the forest, back into the cool, open night. The Mothman noises had disappeared long before I stopped running, but I figured it was my best option to keep on going. I stumbled to my car and peeled out of there, leaving the terrifying encounter behind. That night forever changed me, and it certainly made me believe that cryptids may be real. Never will I ever discredit Mothman being real again. Wendigo fingers. It was a frigid winter night in the heart of northern Canada, the snowfall muffling every sound except the crunch of my boots on the icy ground. I was only a young boy, alone in the wilderness after my father had sent me out to get wooden logs for the night. Now he was a great man, and he taught me everything I knew to this day. Just because he sent me out to get logs at night alone doesn't mean I wasn't trained properly, because I was. He always told me this was Wendigo territory, and he'd said I should never venture out here for long. But the allure of the unknown had been too strong to resist, and I found myself on the outskirts of the forbidden forest, my curiosity getting the better of me. As I trudged farther into the forest, the temperature dropped, and a sense of foreboding settled over me. The air grew heavy with an unnatural chill, and the silence was deafening. I knew I was alone, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't. Looking in front of me, past all the snowfall, a shadowy figure moved amongst the trees, its movements as silent as the falling snow. Its limbs were elongated and seemed to defy the laws of nature, and its eyes held a weird glint in them. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the creature from the stories my father had told me. Never venture out here for long. It was the Wendigo. From a distance, I watched in terror as it prowled through the woods, its gross form moving at an unnatural pace. Each step had taken it closer to a group of deer that didn't know that they'd came upon the Wendigo. The bony fingers reached out, and in an instant, the deer was no more. Its howl echoed through the night, a chorus of despair that I'd never heard and never have heard again. I crouched behind a tree, trying to make myself as small as possible, praying that the Wendigo wouldn't sense me. My heart pounded, and I could feel my pulse in my ears and neck. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, to get as far away as I could, but fear had me rooted in my place, and thankfully it did. The Wendigo looked my way, and I watched, unable to tear my eyes away from the gruesome sight. Its skin seemed to stretch and contort, and its eyes never left the woods after that, scanning the area for potential threats. Minutes felt like hours as I remained hidden, and eventually it had went back into the woods to finish its feast. I went back home to my father after that and told him of the encounter. He believed me. How could he not? These woods were massive, and there was most certainly something out there that we'd yet to see with our own eyes, except I had seen it with my own eyes. A tale of terror. My grandmother, Maria, had always been a storyteller, spinning tales of our family's history and the mysteries of our homeland. But there was one story she told, a tale of terror that haunted my dreams for years. It happened when she was a young woman, living in a remote village nestled in the heart of the Mexican countryside. The nights there were dark and quiet, punctuated only by the distant howls of coyotes. The villagers whispered of the Chupacabra, a blood-sucking beast that prowled the night, and my grandmother had dismissed these stories as mere superstitions. One fateful night, as she laid in her bed with her infant daughter, a weird feeling washed over her. The air grew heavy, and the silence was broken only by the sound of her baby's cries. Maria got up, cradling her child in her arms, and ventured outside. She saw something moving amongst the roofs, straight into the field afterwards. It was no ordinary creature. It was hunched over, with hairless skin and glowing red eyes. It moved with an unnatural grace, like a predator stalking something. The Chupacabra was real, and it was near. Terror surged through her veins as she watched it approach the village, its steps deliberate and menacing. The beast moved in and out of the village like a blurred figure, and it was disorienting to behold. My grandmother retreated into her home, clutching her child tightly, with her heart racing as she whispered prayers for protection. The Chupacabra presence hung heavy in the air, and she could hear it moving through the village, with unnerving cries echoing through the night. For hours, she cowered with her child, trembling in fear and praying. She heard terrified screams of neighbors who had seen it, and animals being attacked. By dawn, the Chupacabra had disappeared, leaving behind a trail of destruction. My grandmother's encounter haunted her for the rest of her life, and while she originally stated it was all superstition, she had seen the Chupacabra from afar. Its presence had been all too real, and the memory of that night weighed heavily on her. She shared it with us as a warning, and a testament to the terrors that lurk in the dark, waiting to blur the lines between myth and reality.